So, I believe we're all familiar with the electric vehicle, or simply EV for short. No, not that one. This one. Anyways, I chose this topic because I'm really fascinated by the electric car and its potential. I think it's really going places. So, the EV works a little differently from a car with a normal internal combustion engine, or simply an ICE, in the sense that it runs on one or more electric motors. But to really understand what that means, let's take a look at an electric motor and see how it works. So, here we see a picture of an electric motor cut in half, seen from the side. But that doesn't really give us a good idea of how it works. So let's look at it seen from the front. Here we have a cross section of an electric motor seen from the front. Here we can see that the motor consists of 4 magnets, 2 on the inside and 2 on the outside. In this illustration, blue represents the magnetic north pole and red represents the magnetic south pole. We know from physics that an electromagnet's polarity can be reversed by switching the poles of the electricity put into them. And that's exactly what happens on the inside of this motor. The 2 magnets on the inside have their polarity switched, forcing them to spin 180 degrees around, in turn rotating the drive shaft they're attached to. But an electric car doesn't go very far if the drive shaft is just spun 180 degrees. So we need to spin the magnets faster and preferably evenly. So this is where the miracle known as alternating current, or simply AC, comes into play. With AC, the electric poles are constantly switched from positive to negative at a specific frequency. So if the frequency is 55 Hz, then the electric poles are reversed 55 times a second. So, by constantly reversing the poles, the magnets in the motor are forced to spin 180 degrees every time the poles are reversed, making the drive shaft spin with some considerable torque, as the electric motor doesn't need to accelerate in the same way an ICE does, because the current is introduced to the magnets immediately. Which is definitely part of the reason the Tesla Model S Plaid currently is the fastest accelerating production car, with an acceleration from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 2.1 seconds. But where and when did the electric car originate? Well, that question is one of many throughout history to not have one definitive answer, as the first origin of the electric car is not quite clear. Some say that it was Robert Anderson from Scotland between 1932 and 1939 who invented the first electric car. Others would claim it was Gustave Trouvé in 1881 in Paris, Thomas Parker in 1884 in the United States, but most would say that it was the German Andreas Flocken in 1888 who invented the first real electric car, with his car called the Flocken Elektrowagen. Regardless of who invented the first real electric car and where, the EV was surprisingly popular in the late 19th century and the early 20th century, with as many as 30,000 of them roaming the world by the turn of the century. And in 1897, they were even used commercially as taxis in Great Britain and the United States. Walter Bercy's electric cabs, situated in London, were the first to have electric cabs for hire. At this time, horse-drawn carriages were still the main form of transportation in the country. So electric cabs actually predated the gasoline and diesel-drawn cabs that are now being replaced by electric cabs. But a lot of changes have befallen the EV since the early 20th century. Modern electric cars are far more advanced and widespread. Charging stations are popping up everywhere in the world, and 6.9 million EVs were sold worldwide in 2021. Car manufacturers such as Fiat, Hyundai, Audi, BMW, Honda, Skoda, Renault, Kia, Volkswagen, and many, many more car brands have already started mass producing EVs. Audi have even gone so far as to stop production of cars with internal combustion engines by the year 2030. The electric motor has also found its way into the world of sports and supercars, with cars like the Rimac Concept 1 and the Neo EP9 making big successes. But with innovation comes disaster. When Richard Hammond of the Grand Tour crashed the Rimac Concept 1 he was racing in Switzerland on June 10, 2017, it took firefighters 5 days to put out the burning car, as the car's lithium-ion batteries kept catching fire because of a chain reaction that started the moment one of the car's 8,000 battery cells burst open. And that's one of the electric car's main problems, the very batteries that make it run. There have been countless reports of EVs bursting into flames after an accident because the batteries were damaged during the accident. And if a car is brought into an auto shop after the accident and the professionals find the battery to be damaged, the car is immediately reported as totaled, no matter how much damage the car has sustained otherwise.